character, man. Like, you're 37 years old. You're living in the middle of Saskatchewan. You had a career, an entire career in oil and gas exploration. Like,
Yeah.
what's the path, man? Like, what are you doing in Saskatchewan? Why'd you do oil?
So when I graduated high school, so I actually grew up on a very large federal community pasture here. I'm not sure. I think you guys have similar things down in the U.S., but in Canada here, during the Depression, the federal government came up with the Prairie Farm Rehabilitation Act, which was a drought relief pasturing program through the federal government to help cattle producers. My dad was actually a manager of one of these pastures, and so I grew up on a federal community pasture, riding horse, being a little cowboy kind of thing. The best childhood you could possibly imagine. I grew up being a cowboy kind of thing, right? What happens a lot out here in central Saskatchewan, most of Saskatchewan, even over into Manitoba and a few places, is there's typically there's not a lot of money kicking around in agriculture, and the dream of most guys around here is a lot of young guys that graduate high school and then go out and work the oil field because it's big bucks, right? You can make some good money, could make some good money. And
what does that mean, good money? What is that? When you say good money, what does that mean?
Like, you'd be pulling in if you went to work, say a drilling rig job kind of thing. I mean, Canadian dollars, so I mean, not quite as much as American dollars. You could get out of school, and without a high school education, you could run out and do somewhere in the ballpark of $80,000 a year, kind of thing. Some guys would do better, some guys not as good, kind of thing. But that's pretty good cash. I mean, was good cash, great cash where I come from, right?
Right.
And it's a little bit different of an experience too, because especially when you're young, you kind of get that wandering gene in you a little bit, and you want to see what else is outside of the agricultural world that you live in, and maybe there'll be more than 4 girls in the next town that you're going to, kind of thing, right? Not that there's anything wrong with the girls around here; they're all fantastic, but there's a lot of guys will run out and start doing that. I actually wound up when we went into like wintertime slower around here, between by the time you're done putting up hay and get all your cattle in and everything, and basically you just do chores until everything starts calving, and then it goes crazy again. So you kind of get like this slow time, and that's when your oil field work is the busiest around here. Is usually getting into the wintertime because there's a lot of remote access stuff that needs to be done on frozen ground here in Canada. So it kind of works out like everyone kind of rides the wave into it, where there's not a lot going on around here. Farming's all done for the year. Well, let's go work the oil field, kind of thing, right? It's where you see a lot of things happening too. And then in the spring, when everything's starting to melt in the oil field, then a lot of guys will come back home and seed and do a few other things, so they kind of work with each other a little bit too. But yeah, I wound up going out to a town called Brooks, Alberta. Kind of got into the oil and gas industry there, and just kept going with it. I just got completely infatuated with it. Wound up in Grand Prairie I was in Grand Prairie. I got up there in 2003, and I was there for 16 years.
And in this work, are you around like the actual drill that is going in the ground and hawking chain?
So sometimes you would be, but I was more into the well services side of things. So there's it's kind of funny. There's an idea out there. A lot of people think the oil and gas sector, which when I did the Canadian oil and gas video, was kind of the point of that video, is to show how many different parts and pieces make up the oil and gas sector, not only in Canada but in the U.S. And when you get into offshore stuff, it's not just the drilling rig that goes out there and punches a hole in the ground. There's a lot of services involved with what goes on. I mean, right from start to finish, from building the lease all the way right down to when you have a completed site and facilities there. Like there's a lot of different moving parts to the oil and gas sector. I work specifically in the well services side. So it's kind of the in-between from a drilling rig to a well going into the pipeline, where you see some cementing services would deal directly with a drilling rig. And then primarily did a lot of work with hydraulic fracturing crews and things like that. And then got into actually the commercial transportation side of it, doing logistics and product delivery for hydraulic fracturing and completions crews. It was very, very interesting. It was the amount that you can learn in the world is endless. And that was 16 years of learning every day. But I think everybody learns every day, and you should try and learn every day. Even now, being back in agriculture, I learn 4 to 10 new things every day kind of thing. And that's, I love learning new stuff about different things. It's one of the best feelings in the world.
So why'd you get out? You're learning, you're making money, you're doing something kind of fun. I mean, that's the modern day cowboy, it seems.
Yeah, it was actually great. It was a great job. And it was just, you've reached that point in your life, I think, where you're like, I don't know if I enjoy what I'm doing as much as I used to anymore, kind of thing. I think one of my bigger problems was I actually wound up being the operations manager of a transportation company. Started having dealing with employees and a few different things. And when you're dealing with a lot of these things, it's a 24-hour beast because you're running 24-hour operations in the oil field, and there's getting to be a lot of stuff happening where I was like, you know what, I don't really know if I enjoy this as much as I used to. And there was one night specifically where, it's 3:00 in the morning and you get a call and there's a truck in the ditch, and you're like, okay, you got to go and set everything up and get a truck out of the ditch and do all this stuff and come back. There's a few other things going on as well at the time, but hey, you hit that point where, and I know there's probably a lot of people out there that have hit it, where you're just like, I don't think I enjoy what I do anymore. And that's, I think a lot of people get themselves in a situation where whether you enjoy what you do or not, you're doing it because you get a mortgage, you get kids, you get wife, you get all this stuff going on, and you need to pay some bills. I was just fortunate enough to be in a situation where, no wife, no kids, and not a lot holding me. And I had this yearning desire to get back to my roots. Which is here, right? And I there's one morning I woke up and I was like, I need to do that. It's what I want to do, and I could feel it. I could feel myself being pulled in that direction. And essentially, I really wasn't happy doing what I was doing anymore. And I was like, I could keep doing this, or I could try and pursue happiness a little bit and see if I can get some results out of it. And I did. But in order to do that, you got to take a pretty big jump to do it. You leave what you've done for the last, I was in oil and gas for 19 years. It's kind of terrifying when you're like, hey, I'm just going to jump off this ledge and go. And I'm glad I did it. Sometimes you need to make a change in your life. Sometimes you need to make what you have happening work, and there's ways to do that as well. I decided to take this path, and I'm glad I did. I'm really glad I did. It got me back here and a lot more in touch with where I'm from and what built me. And I think it's really important now. And I think that's why you see Quick Dick being such a goofy and funny guy, because that was something that I'd kind of lost in my life. I'd lost, I like, not in a depressing way. I'd lost my happiness, I guess, if you want to call it that. Like, I'm kind of who Quick Dick is, joking all the time and having fun. And that part had slowly been chiseled out of me. And I didn't like that. So I changed it.